Time that America refused to give the Negro any land. Through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farm. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. Now, this is what we are faced with, and this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
What's up, ADOS and our allies? Good evening on the West Coast. Good evening in the Central. Good evening on the East Coast. You know who it is, family. Yes, Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the Friends of ADOS TV channel, bringing you those ADOS hot topics and making the case for reparations, making the case for Democratic down ballot. Yes, family, welcome Justin Mathis, ADOS New Jersey. Thank you for joining the live. Follow in, family. We got some hot topics for you tonight before we jump into our reading. I'm going to really do my best to get you in and out of here under, let's say, an hour and 15 minutes. I've got my notes. Yes, I do. I'm going to jump right in while you guys file on in so that I can really get ahead of myself, because the reading tonight is a little lengthier than some, but it's imperative that we get through it, because every show I'm on my square, helping you to understand that the more things stay the same, family, where all of these presidents are concerned. And the ADOS, you guys understand why we need that distinction. I hope you're getting clear between all of the amazing shows out here as to why we need this distinction. Because now everybody wants in on the act, right, family? Jennifer Lopez spoke in Spanish how black she is. And my question is, has she been identifying as black on the census? You know, I don't hate on anybody that wants to do this and be this, but let's not put this on for convenience on how to turn profits, weaponizing ADOS-ness to turn profits, all the while having all the access to whiteness. Because the color of white in this country is green, family. You can be as black as the night, as I've said on other shows. And if you can pay the cost up here in America, you too can be white, no matter your complexion. Okay, but guess what? The difference is, if you find yourself in the top 10% of blackness, okay, with this complexion, dark, if you find yourself in that, guess what doesn't respect pedigree when it's being fired at you? The race soldiers and their guns. Say you got money, but you came back to the hood to visit your people who don't have money. If a race soldier decides that they want to, take you out and take you down, that can still happen, because they don't stop to ask for pedigree when they're firing bullets, when they're coming up in our homes and murdering us. Botham Jean is a great example of that. He was an educated professional, and they came up in his home and executed him. Okay? Breonna Taylor, she was a working woman. They came up in her home and murdered her. So I just marvel at the way people put on our blackness to sell music, to sell records, to turn a profit. But they don't want any pain of being black. I don't hear any of these same people in this fight for reparations. Where are they for that? I don't see them, but they can show enough sing it in Spanish on their records and things of this nature, right? And Dave Chappelle, God bless him, but he kind of made my jaw drop with some things he said in the griot. Now, I love Dave, because he is from my hometown of Ohio. And I sort of kind of get where he's coming from. So let me not pretend to disparage him totally and completely when he said what he said in the griot, but it just makes me extra proud of someone like Ice Cube, who is as accomplished as Dave Chappelle. I mean, Dave fell off for some time, right? And Netflix offered him these $1 million deals. So I kind of get his sentiment when he shared, what I'm about to read to you real quick. I need to get it verbatim because I don't want to misquote the brother. But today in the griot, he said, there is no pension plan for leaders, said Chappelle. Martin Luther King died penniless. Malcolm X died penniless. I don't want to do that. Well, none of us wants to do penniless, okay? None of us wants to do penniless. But the fact of the matter is, you're accomplished. My response to that was, does he need to be canceled too? Of course he doesn't want to be an activist. He's got his millions. Let his people eat dirt. The truth comes out in the end, doesn't it? The sentiment is shared by far too many celebs and ADOS alike. You should have pled the fifth, Dave. And I thanked Ice Cube for giving a damn, millions and all. When people show you who they are, believe them. So, in effect, what I was trying to convey here is that it's very convenient to not want to do activism. But I am grateful to our ancestors. I'm grateful to the ones current day, our living legends, who pick up a brick in this fight for ADOS. Very grateful. And I'm a little disenchanted when I see remarks like this without a follow-up, right? That although you may not want to do the heavy lifting, it still needs to be done. Yes, he's a part of the decadent veil. And I'm saying get your money on, but it really is disenchanting when I feel that you're revolutionary in your comedy when you speak to Black issues. But this feels like it's being used against us. Like in hindsight being 2020, it just felt like his remarks he's using ADOS life to weaponize it against us in his comedy. So that made me pause. You can read the whole article in the griot. I won't go through all of that because we've got to get to the reading. And then, like I said, I've got to get you guys done early because I'm scheduling some travel for a wedding this weekend. I'm so excited, so excited. So, so Dave speaking in this manner, nobody wants to do this work, but I would have thought that Dave would have been a lot more empathetic and would have followed it up with, although I don't want to lead the charge because it messes with my purse. I know that it's needed and necessary. So it's imperative that we know the data. We have an egregious racial wealth gap. At the end of slavery, there was an $11 trillion surplus that is morphed into over $100 trillion that white folks share, while 90% of ADOS share less than $700 billion since COVID. And I know some of these things are redundant, but we get new people watching all the time. So I need to help you understand why this fight for reparations is as dire as it is, because it's tied to our protest vote as well, okay? Which we'll get into as I go through some of my other comments about some of the other things that I've been seeing. I actually had an opportunity to view the Cocktails with the Queens Fox Soul show. They had Ice Cube on. And, Ice Cube was speaking to the Army instead of them being brought into our communities to fight against the protesters, that they be leveraged to build up infrastructure. So I'm just going to try to lovingly correct Ice Cube. And this is where it's important to align yourself with a movement that knows the data, that knows the information. I'm not opposed to celebrities speaking. I'm just opposed to them speaking when they're not informed. That's the only thing I would implore each of them to do before they speak on it. And you'll see why as I go through some of my notes from the Cocktails with the Queens. That's Claudia and Vivica, Lisa Ray, and there's a couple of others on there, but those are the ones I know off the top of my head. So the Cocktails with the Queen show, Ice Cube mentioned about the Army being used for infrastructure, to build up infrastructure versus being weaponized against the protesters. Infrastructure needs to be done by ADOS. We need jobs. We don't need an army coming in there building up our communities. We need American wages, which supersede $15 an hour because the cost of living is exorbitant in most places. Yes, you may be able to go south and actually you make $15 an hour work, but then you're dealing with a whole bunch of other things that you may not want to be a party to in terms of racism and discrimination. And so when you're dealing with a Chicago where Blacks are so oppressed, they're lacking in so much resource, but the cost of living is through the roof there, then you need more than $15 an hour. And you don't need an army coming in there to do infrastructure projects. That needs to go to the brothers who aren't degreed by design of institutional systemic racism. And this is not about playing the victim. There are systems in place to make sure we're tethered to the bottom because capitalism requires it. And they decided long ago that we would be it, that they would weaponize our Blackness, our ADOSness against us after using our ancestors as chattel slaves to build all the wealth that they eat from. And so that's what this is about. It's not playing the victim. I think a lot of you, I'm really trying to get more people willing to break the back of the establishment with a protest vote. Which is why I'm constantly leaning in on this show about the data, about the presidents of old. You guys need to understand what we're asking you to do is going to produce different results. That is really what needs to happen. This lesser of two evil, two-step shuffle to our peril has gotten us all the way to George Floyd 846. So we need to do something very, very different and very, very drastic. And given that the vote is all we have, that is the commodity we need to leverage to weaponize it against both parties until they cut the check in the trillions over multi-generations. So that's my square. So another thing about Ice Cube talking about the 500 billion, and Roland Martin spoke to this, that 500 billion, when you read this one-page platinum plan, that's dealing with infrastructure and different things to enhance the communities. What's up, Maya Fallon? Thank you for joining the live. That 500 billion is to be used throughout the community. I agree with Ice Cube. The movement agrees with Ice Cube. We need our checks because all the Democrats and Republicans do is find a way to package all of what we need under the guise of minority or people of color. You know, all these kind of tricky words, even Black is tricky, because they flatten Blackness so much that the decadent veil, the top 10%, are masking the failure of the 90% of the Blacks in this country, which are American descendants of chattel slavery. And that's why we constantly talk up that distinction. It is needed. Otherwise, folks can't see where the needs really are. So we're fighting for it as a new identity. African American flattens us, people of color. Minority is white women, immigrants, LGBTQ. We're on the bottom of that. People of color, we're not that. Those are immigrants that have come over here. Latinx, Asians, that's who they are. We're not people of color. We are American descendants of chattel slavery, and that's tied to our justice claim in the trillions over multi-generations. So this 500 billion that Trump is talking about has nothing to do with putting money in the hands of ADOS specifically. That's talking about putting it in the communities. And I would venture to say, how many communities do we even have left that have not been gentrified? So when you give 500 billion to our communities, that's another white wealth transfer. A plan that targets Black people is too flat. So Ice Cube was definitely right in demanding a plan. That's what his contract with Black America plan is for, specifically for Blacks, for ADOS, that is. But if he doesn't have trillions, if he doesn't have reparations in his contract, it's just as empty as Biden's plan, Trump's plan, BLM's plan. Nobody but the ADOS has reparations and a Black agenda as a demand. The Black agenda is for all Blacks in this country. Reparations is exclusively for the ADOS. Will Trump get it done? They were pressing him on the Cocktails with the Queen show. Has he been pressed to give things to Black people? Vivica talked about, the kids at the border. Well, let me help you with that, Vivica, because you're grossly misinformed. Neither party has done anything for ADOS, or else we would not be at George Floyd 846. You see, being poor makes us targets in this country that our ancestors built with their lives. So while you're on what Trump did, I would venture to ask you, what did Obama do for 2 terms when we were instrumental in voting him into office? He says that only 60% of us turned out, but I'm saying, I'm going to have a show next Tuesday on whether or not our votes really matter in the big scheme of things when it comes to choosing the president. Do we choose the presidents with our vote? We're going to have a guest on, Mr. Valentine, next Tuesday. So guys, be sure to tune in. But back to Vivica and what she said. What has Trump done? What has he been pressed to give? Well, this is the problem when you allow presidents in office before you can hold them to a commitment for your people. Many folks want, just like the Democrats told Ice Cube, we'll see you after we get elected. We'll sit down and talk about it. No, you've got to get them on the hook now. And that Biden plan, the Lift Every Voice for ADOS African American plan, has minority in there 30 times, and it has people of color 22 times. That's not a plan for us. But if you don't understand those words, then you don't know how you read his plan out of context, thinking something is in it for you, when he's still not talking about repairing us in the trillions over multi generations. We just want to be made whole. We'll get our own education. We'll get our own degrees, etc. Okay? Speaking of which, so Vivica was talking about how Trump did nothing for the illegals. Well, let me help you with something. The immigration, legal and illegal, is hurting ADOS. Ice Cube is right in demanding that the gate be up specifically for ADOS. Because how long do those black spending dollars recycle within our communities when all the businesses are predominantly owned by immigrants? They don't stay in the communities. Those monies are made here off of us and sent back over to their countries. They have the great fortune of dual citizenship, which we aren't privileged to. We have to make it work right here in this country that our ancestors built with their lives. So immigration, as you, Vivica, implore upon Trump to help the immigration, this is what we're challenged with in this movement. What's up, Black Magic? This is what we're challenged with and why ADOS is on his square at all times, specifically fighting on behalf of ADOS. Because our needs are being overlooked while the Democrats are giving immigrants a pathway to citizenship before making sure ADOS is made whole, is made American through the reparations. This is the way they spread our reparations thin to make everybody else whole, and we're still what? Tethered at the bottom. This didn't just happen with Trump, Vivica Fox. This is every president, as we've been reading about in the presidential book, right, family? All of these presidents have been instrumental in where we sit today as the anchor of America in the fight of our lives to prevent from becoming the permanent underclass in the country our ancestors built with their lives. So the dollars don't recycle in our communities because we don't own anything in our communities. And the immigrants are taking that money and making sure their families are shored up in their respective homelands. They're not spending it here and having it recycled to benefit ADOS. That's why our communities are called things like Chirac. That's why you see a lot of black on black crimes and murders. There are no resources. Everybody else from every place else owns us in our own communities. So the dollars aren't recycling the way they would if we were in control of our own communities. And that's what reparations would enable us to do. But have our own businesses. We wouldn't have to worry about redlining and being discriminated against. We can build up our own communities, pool, aggregate our dollars, and build up our own communities. Employ each other the way they do. Business people, small biz didn't get access to SBA PPP. No, they did not get access to that. And over 50% of our ADOS businesses are permanently out of business due to COVID. They won't be returning. So, and additionally, they didn't get the SBA or the PPP. Why is that? Well, you've got Steve Mnuchin, who is the National Treasury Secretary to Donald Trump, who Kamala failed to prosecute when he was the CFO of One West Bank up in the Bay Area and wrongfully foreclosed on ADOS homes. You would be hard-pressed to find ADOS owning homes up in the Bay. Thanks to Kamala not prosecuting Steve Mnuchin, who is now the National Treasury Secretary. Of course, they're going to take that PPP and SBA and make sure their billionaire buddies are okay. While we lost our businesses, what few little businesses we had, most of which were sole proprietorships. Okay? So Kamala is instrumental in why Steve Mnuchin is, running the money all the way to his friends' pockets, and it's not coming back to the Black small business owners. Absolutely. She's responsible for that. All for $11,000 towards her senatorial race that Steve Mnuchin paid. $11,000 is what she sold out Black home ownership up in the Bay. And this is the problem and why folks don't want to vote for her nor Biden. They're both instrumental in tying us to the bottom of this country. It's not just a Trump thing. He just got here. Okay? Kamala's been in politics longer than Trump. Biden's been in politics for about 47 years. And we are at George Floyd 846. Black women aren't included in Black. Okay, the girls on the, Vivica, I don't know who raised it, but they were raising the fact that he didn't have anything specific for Black women in his contract with Black America. Ice Cube's whole narrative was, you're included in Black people. And then they gave him all this pushback when he implored upon them to write the section that they feel is missing. And what did they do? They pivoted and told Ice Cube to write their missing section that they're complaining about, that he says is included in people. Black women are included in people. So why in the world are you now tasking him with writing what you believe is exclusive, excludes Black women? And this is what happens. Everybody wants to pass the buck. Nobody wants to do the heavy lifting. The same is true for the ADOS movement. I can count on, maybe 20 fingers how many people are actually doing this work. So we need more people willing to work in this movement, not just, sit up here and disparage folks like Ice Cube, who is at least got busy after George Floyd 846 on the neck. Lots of us got super busy after that, and kudos. But let's not complain about what's missing and then task him with putting in what you believe is missing. You do it yourself. He's open to those improvements. Ice Cube was also keen on expressing that this isn't his money. Absolutely. One of the things I cannot stand is a real conservative talking point, which speaks to, well, what will you do with the money? We don't know, there's not enough of us in the ADOS, collective that know how to be responsible when we get our reparations in the trillions over multi-generations. I can't stand that. That it is nobody's business to police what anyone does with their repair. How arrogant to think that Ice Cube or any one of us should be able to decide whether someone decides they want to take their million and buy a bunch of Jordans or weave. That's their prerogative. It's none of your business. It is the business of the person that is actually being endowed with the money. But let's not say that we're not owed the trillions. This is not a handout. This is not welfare. This is a debt that is owed for slavery, Jim Crow, and accrued ongoing systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage in the country our ancestors built with their lives. Let's not be petty and join the petty betties, talking about, oh, they don't need that money. What will they do with it? All this kind of nonsense. It's not your monkey, not your circus. Worry about your check and what you intend to do with it. I know I'm not wasting mine. And I know a lot of people in the ADOS movement that will not be wasting theirs either. Okay, Claudia is misquoting the black vote. She's saying that Trump siphoned 20% of black male votes the last election cycle. Absolutely not true. First of all, you need to give some context if you're going to talk about what black men supported Trump. And you have to understand why they're supporting Trump. You're talking two candidates that are responsible for why we got close to 1 million black men in prison, who want to open up the floodgates to 11 million more immigrants to come to this country to further oppress who? Black men. That's exactly who it oppresses, because you got free slave labor in the prisons, the private prison industrial complex. Okay? And immigrants come over here and they rise right over you. And black immigrants absolutely weaponize where they come from with their accents and their last name to get special considerations over the ADOS in the workplace. Yes, they do. Okay? And Hispanics are running it, especially down here. I've shared with you guys that we're 200 liquid to African immigrants, 60,000 liquid to white folks. I want to say about 125,000 liquid to Kamala's people, Asian, Indian, 245,000 liquid. We're 6% of the population, 44% of the degree, only 6% of the private sector. Okay? Where do you think the race soldiers hang out? With the people that are 200 liquid or with the people that are 60,000 liquid? So, I don't blame black men if they're going the way of Trump, because there is still no real prison reform. You got brothers in there for low-level offenses like peddling marijuana, while the states turn a profit on marijuana in our communities when the ex-felons who were in prison for marijuana can't have any partnership in that. Those are white-owned in our hoods, and they come and pick up their weed and go back to their hoods. They turn a profit still off the backs of blacks in the neighborhood. So we're still paying the cost. So I don't hear any real reform. And like I said, the Democrats are about to give 11 million illegal immigrants a pathway to citizenship before cutting us the check in the trillions over multi-generations. What's up, Mike Evans, Nicole Williams, Chrisman? Thank you guys so much for joining the live. So I'm just going over I actually got a chance to view a couple videos, and these are some notes before I get into the reading for the evening, okay? Biden Kamala said after the election, these broads aren't very bright. He's promised much to many, not ADOS. We can't put him on the hook once in office. Okay, these are my cliff notes that I'm reading from, but let me make it plain for you. These girls on cocktails, these women on Cocktails with the Queens, they clearly don't know politics. They're sitting up here imploring upon Ice Cube to only talk with the Democrats after they get elected. How'd that go with Obama? He created 1 million white millionaires on his watch, while over 43% of ADOS lost the only wealth they had, their homes. Sure, he came with Keep Your Home Affordable programs after we lost our homes. But that's a day late and a dollar short, mostly there to help white folks who had the capital to hold on to their homes. So all this wait until the Democrats get in office, you've got to be kidding me. They're not going to do anything. Obama put Sharpton and Mark Morial out in the snow when they came Johnny lately. had us so fixated on the fact that he looked like us, but he isn't us. Okay? So he did nothing for us. No. You've got to hold these elected officials on the hook before they take office. You got nothing coming if you can't put them on the hook. How are you going to hold them accountable once they get in office if they never put themselves on the hook with you in mind on the platform prior to you casting your vote? I've already shared with you guys. Thank you, Cheryl Livingston, for joining the live. I've already shared with you guys about how back in Teddy Roosevelt's day, after he got elected, after we gave him the vote, he dishonorably discharged 167 Buffalo soldiers, took away their pensions, took away their access to federal government jobs, and made it so they couldn't re-enlist from being accused of murdering a white man after the first white man was murdered that they did not murder. They were quarantined to their barracks. So it couldn't have been them. And Dr. Charles Morris, pastor of Abyssinian Church, he said, you shot us when our guns were empty. But we got something for that. We're going to deliver a Republican Congress and a Democratic top of ticket. So what I'm proposing is nothing new. Thank you, my love. Yes, share, like. I don't see a lot of people watching, but I'm grateful for those of you that are. I think I'm competing with a lot of shows tonight, but my whole thing is trying to stay consistent, family. I promised I would give you a show Tuesday, Thursdays, and Sundays, and I'm working on staying consistent so I can get my numbers up. So you guys can help me with that. So I know other folks may have shows and different things going on, but if you share it or start your watch parties, that helps me with my numbers, especially on YouTube. Get them up. This is information that everybody needs to know. So anyway, Dr. Charles Morris said, we're going to weaponize the vote against you. We're going to deliver a Republican Congress to protect the South, the blacks in the South, and we'll deliver a Democratic top of ticket. You're not going to be able to get the top of ticket anymore. Okay, we got something for that. So that's the same thing the ADOS movement is proposing, because neither of these presidents are offering us any tangibles. I am voting Green Party top of the ticket and Democratic down ballot to protect the over 42% of ADOS who rely on government assistance by design of institutional systemic racism. I am asking of each of you to get in this fight, pick up a brick, and vote anybody but Biden-Harris top a ticket and deliver the most Democratic Congress you can find on your ballot, because, family, they hold the purse. They hold the purse. We cannot allow a trifecta of either party. It's going to be to the demise of the ADOS quickly, especially if we get a Democratic trifecta. We're finished. We're finished. They're going to bring in more immigration, give them a pathway to citizenship before making us whole, making us American, and cutting that check in the trillions over multi-generations. And when you help us in this protest vote, it gives us 2 more years to vet the right candidates to replace the lanes in Congress right now. We need time to get ADOS for ADOS in Congress. Visit TamaraForGeorgia.com. She's running for U.S. Senate in Georgia. Please vote for her if you haven't cast your vote already. Ice Cube is still on the fence. He's still undecided. So that means my message of a protest vote is not in vain. There's many of us who are undecided. I'm imploring upon you to get into this fight with the ADOS and weaponize your vote this election cycle, and weaponize your vote and socialize your suffering. Because if the Democrats take the top in Congress, we will be the only ones suffering. And I don't want you to naively believe that there won't be any casualties. Aren't we the only casualties right now? Well, there will be casualties. We just won't be the only ones. That's my square. So the girls on the Cocktails with the Queens also said, Kamala invited you on a live Zoom with about 12 other people. 12 other entertainers. Why? Don't act like they didn't invite you, blah, 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 blip-de-blip-de-whoop. Ice Cube, I love what he responded. You can't be serious when you're bringing on a gang of people on a Zoom. I have a contract with Black America. I am speaking specifically for Black America, which we term ADOS because we're unflattening blackness so we can be seen. So all of our health crises, our home ownership crises, our business ownership crises, our miseducation in this country can be seen. All of it. So he's doing the same thing with the contract and said he reached out to Kamala's people and told them no, he will not be coming on with 20 other celebrities to try to have an honest conversation and a serious conversation about the repair of Black folks. That is in vain. He's not there to do a rally cry. He's there to get politics done. I love you for that, Ice Cube. Thank you. Debonair1, thank you for joining the live. Yes, weaponize your vote and socialize your suffering. There will be casualties. We just won't be the only ones. Yeah, you can quote me. I think somebody quoted that and made a meme out of it. I just love how creative we are. Okay, so I love Ice Cube for standing on his square. His contract with Black America is for ADOS exclusively. Not minority, not BIPOC, not POC, not Black, not African American. Well, he calls it a contract with Black America, but he has since, after the fact, come into the fold of the ADOS. So we are training everyone to claim your identity. It is tied to your justice claim. It is tied to your reparations. And this is our square. We're going to be on the ADOS square. We're going to keep the fact that we descend from chattel slavery in the face of white folks to make them very uncomfortable. You see, they won't say it, right, family? You see that. They refuse to say ADOS unless they're disparaging us and calling us Russian bots, trying to COINTELPRO us, okay, calling us Trump supporters. I'm not voting for Trump. I'm voting green top and the most progressive dimmed down ballot I can find. I'm asking you to join me in that fight because why? The Green Party has reparations on their platform and they've agreed to sit with ADOS to perfect it. So that's why I'm giving them my vote. Check them out. Rally call. Silly women don't even know. This is what I have a problem with when Ice Cube is implored upon to sit down with women and men alike who don't know politics. Okay. So now let's see here. What time am I at? Oh, I'm at 37 minutes. Okay. So I'm not going to get into the rest of it. I want to unpack Obama the next show. And I want to talk on Roland Martin's show. I've watched both of those. I want to jump into the reading. That's enough of that for now. I need to get you guys out because I've got to prepare for travel. I'm going to a wedding. I'm just so excited to see my friends from Houston. Just super stoked. You know how it is, family, right? Dealing with this pandemic and not being able to travel and see your people. It's going to be a COVID safe affair, but it's still going to be nice to be with people. I just miss, being out and about with my people so much. I'm sure you do as well. So tonight's dead president we're going to go over is Harry S. Truman. Now remember, family, I go over this reading because I need you to understand the puckery with Black America and these presidents to help encourage you to really get on board with the protest vote, because we've been doing the lesser of two evil two-step shuffle to George Floyd 846. And the definition of insanity is to continue to do the same thing while expecting different results. So I'm reading from Prejudential by Margaret Kimberly, and this is why I read. I will be commenting in between, then I'll pray you out and get myself ready for travel and all of that jazz. Okay, family? So Harry S. Truman was in office 1945 to 1953. Harry Truman, who became president upon Roosevelt's death in 1945, represents the contradictions that Black Americans face when making political choices. He was openly racist and was a member of the KKK in 1920 when he campaigned for a local judgeship in Missouri. Embarrassed by the act later, he claimed that he had done so under duress and once made the bizarre claim that the Klan had threatened to kill him. Thank you, Joseph Prevost, for joining the live. When I give those blank stares, I'm just done, family. Moving on. Yet Truman is fondly remembered by Black people of his era as a president who was good on civil rights. Okay, me speaking. This is a problem we have when we continue to celebrate President Obama, who created 1 million white millionaires on his watch, while Over 43% of ADOS lost all of their wealth, their biggest assets being their homes to bequeath to our children. We share $700 billion to white folks over $100 trillion. And so this is the challenge when we don't see things correctly, when we don't know the data, when we don't engage and we just get on the bandwagon of, Jesus Obama. Anyway, his home state of Missouri was a border state, one of 4 slave states, along with Maryland, Delaware, and Kentucky, that differed from the rest of the South only in that they did not join the Confederacy. Missouri may not have had regular forces on the field of battle, but it was the scene of a ferocious Confederate guerrilla campaign led by Jesse and Frank James and others of their ilk. During Truman's childhood, Frank James would show up in his hometown of Independence, Missouri, for reunions with other elderly veterans of the infamous Quantrill's Raiders. In 1901, the local paper, the Jackson Examiner, printed this editorial: "The community at large need not be especially surprised if there is a Negro lynching in Independence. The conditions are favorable at this time. There are a lot of worthless young Negro men in town who do nothing. They do not pretend to work and stand around on the streets and swear and make remarks about ladies and others who may pass by. They crowd into the electric cars and become offensive. Once again, family, this is by design of institutional systemic racism. When you free us and don't give us what we're owed with respect to our 40 acres and a mule, and you pillage Freedmen's Bureau Bank, what else do the brothers have to do? You don't allow us access to education." This was before the Civil Rights Act was passed. And this is the way you disparagingly talk about the very men and women who descend from the very slaves that built all the wealth you eat from. We are the legs of that table. And this is what incenses me when I read these things. I oftentimes, like tonight, read it for the first time with you, family, because I can't take it. I can't take it. It's very heavy. But we cannot fix what we're not willing to face. So I put myself through this trauma. And I thank you for allowing yourself to have your eyes wide open, because anger gets shit done. I fight in this movement because I'm angry about the conditions of my people by design of institutional systemic racism. Truman's grandparents were all slaveholders. His mother recalled as a child watching Union soldiers steal and destroy livestock and lamented that the, quote, white man Lee had to surrender to old Grant, close quote. Truman used the word nigger his entire life. All defenses of his being, quote, a man of his times, close quote, are weasel words used to cover up for the country as a whole. If, quote, give 'em hell, Harry, close quote, Truman was racist, then so too were millions of other Americans. Truman, me speaking, this is why the gate is up, American descendant of chattel slavery. This is why we're unflattening blackness. And that is what the country is angry at and why they're trying to COINTELPRO the ADOS movement. I just need you guys to be informed so you can put them in their place. You can check them in social media when they come for us. Truman, like his predecessors, was unconcerned about Black Americans' political rights unless their condition threatened his own political fortune. Sound familiar? In 1948, every poll showed the president behind his expected Republican rival, John Dewey. He also faced a challenge from Henry Wallace, who had served as Roosevelt's vice president from 1941 to 1945. Wallace was unceremoniously dumped as FDR's vice presidential candidate in the 44 campaign in favor of Truman so as to appease Southern Democrats eager for a border state man who wouldn't talk about equality as Wallace had. Your Democrats, like the author of the 94 crime bill, Jim Crow Joe Biden, segregationist Jim Crow Joe. South Carolina Governor Strom Thurmond, Biden's protege. Well, Biden was the protege to Strom Thurmond. That's his man, his main man. Look it up. South Carolina Governor Strom Thurmond led 35 Southerners out of the 48 Democratic Party convention in protest of a civil rights platform supported by President Harry Truman, Republican. When asked why he was walking out when Roosevelt had the same platform, he replied, "I agree, but Truman really means it," close quote. But the evidence shows that Truman's convictions on the matter were born of political pressure and expedience. Vice President Truman and President Roosevelt met together only once after the 44 election, leaving an uninformed man in office in April 45, who also labored under Roosevelt's shadow. He was seen as a one-term caretaker and had little personal popularity. Wallace was always a favorite of the left wing of the Democratic Party, and his decision to run as a progressive candidate in 48 put Truman on the defensive. Among others, Paul Robeson also put Truman on the defensive. On September 23, 1946, Robeson led a delegation from the American Crusade against lynching to a White House meeting with Truman. He began by reading the delegation's statement. "Mr. President, we are here representing 1,500 delegates from various parts of the country attending a conference to inaugurate an American crusade to end lynching." We still got lynching on the books to this day. What happened, Obama? You couldn't use your executive pen to do that while you were doing the Blue Alert law for Blue Lives Matter? We know that you have received delegations concerned with the rising wave of lynching and mob violence in the U.S., but you have thus far refrained from issuing a formal public statement expressing your views on lynching and recommending a definitive legislative and educational program to end the disgrace of mob violence. Did Obama? Has Biden? Has Kamala? Truman interrupted by saying that he was thinking about it. Another delegate, Mrs. Harper Sibley, pointed out the contradiction of the United States prosecuting Nazi war criminals while protecting race murder at home. Robeson said that the Black war veterans might, quote, cause a natural emergency that called for federal intervention, close quote. Robeson was serious in his encounter with Truman and wouldn't defer to him. When Truman claimed that the U.S. and Great Britain were the last refuge of freedom in the world, Robeson differed. I disagreed. The British Empire is one of the greatest enslavers of human beings. Close quote. The meeting became so heated that Truman walked out, but Robeson didn't back down. Thank you, Paul Robeson. He spoke at the Lincoln Memorial, testified before Congress, and engaged in pitched battles with the press on the issue. Of course, he paid a personal price. The refusal in 1950 to reissue his passport unless he signed a loyalty oath and an affidavit declaring that he was not a member of the Communist Party was a direct result of his outspokenness toward Truman and others. Isn't that what they're doing to the ADOS movement? They're trying to red scare everybody against the ADOS movement by calling us Russian bots. They're trying to COINTELPRO us. That's why I have this show. That's why so many ADOS shows are cropping up. Because the revolution is being social mediaized. They're doing the same thing to ADOS. The corporate with 3 Ks news media outlets. The aftermath of this episode proved that cajoling, settling for Black people in prominent positions, fleeing to one party as a bulwark against the other, and the other usual suspect methods were less effective than acts of direct confrontation. The confrontation is weaponizing your vote this election cycle by voting anybody but Democrat at the top of the ticket. I'm voting Green Party, and the most progressive Democratic down ballot ticket you can find. in your respective city to protect the over 42% of ADOS who rely on government assistance by design of institutional systemic racism. It is time to do what, family? Weaponize our vote and socialize our suffering. Or we're finished. This will be the last election cycle this matters. Right now, Hispanics, I think, are in the 50 million somewhere. We're around 37 million. And they want to open up and make a pathway for 11 more illegals, give them a pathway to citizenship before paying you your reparations. That's the wealth we have to give to our children and our grandchildren. Facing election in 1948 as an underdog, Truman had to find a way to appeal to an important part of the Roosevelt constituency, Black voters in the North. In November 1947, his aide, James Rowe, wrote The Politics of 48, a 40-page memorandum erroneously attributed to Clark Clifford until 1991 that showed him a path to victory. Rowe was clear that the president would have to cultivate Black voters. The Republicans know how vulnerable the Democratic Party is insofar as the Negro vote is concerned. They have been bending every effort to woo the Negroes away from the administration's fold. Isn't that true of Trump right now with that, what's the word I'm looking for? Black, I don't know what it is. The platinum plan, he calls it. It's not a platinum plan. That's pandering for the Black vote. He's not intending to do anything for you. That $500 billion is not cash in your pockets. And furthermore, you're owed in the trillions over multi-generations. So we're not accepting those numbers. If they're not talking trillions in physical cash in your bank accounts, we're a no. You have to stand on your square. They have been bending every effort to woo the Negroes away from the administration's fold. In all probability, Republican strategy at the next session will be to offer an FEPC, Fair Employment Practices Committee, an anti-poll tax bill, and an anti-lynching bill. That bill is still on the Senate desk. Who's in the Senate? The Republicans. That's why we need to get a Democratic Congress, the House and the Senate, so these things can get passed. I don't understand why Obama didn't pass it when he had a Democratic trifecta his first 2 years. But everybody always wants to pivot to the Republicans tied his hand. Yeah. If you believe that, I got a Brooklyn Bridge to sell you for $0.25. He's complicit in the white supremacist, oppressive, institutional, systemic racism that's crushing the ADOS while pandering to us for our vote for 2 terms. We're at George Floyd 846. And the race soldiers got Blue Lives Matter, akin to Biden, who wants to pour $30 million more into funding the very race soldiers that are executing us in our homes while driving, while running, while breaking up fights, while... This will be accompanied by a flourish of oratory devoted to the civil rights of various groups of our citizens. The administration would make a grave error if we permitted the Republicans to get away with this. It would appear to be sound strategy to have the president go as far as he feels he possibly could go in recommending measures to protect the rights of minority groups. This course of action would obviously cause difficulty with our Southern friends, but that is the lesser of two evils. We've still been doing that all the way to George Floyd 846. I'm imploring upon all ADOS to stop that this election cycle. I would venture to say if we don't, it already doesn't matter. If we don't do so in the record numbers that we need with this protest vote, woe be unto us if those Democrats open up the floodgates to more immigration before cutting you that check. Because they're looking to replace us. They're weaponizing immigration against us to replace us. We're already smaller than the Latinx community. And if you combine all the immigrant groups, we're really far outnumbered. The only saving grace right now, this election cycle, is that the white vote is split. And they need the Black vote. But you would think that they would be offering reparations and a black agenda in exchange for that vote. They're not that desperate or that pressed because they've got the immigrants and they've got the corporatists. So we have to do our part and weaponize the only commodity we've got, our vote. If it can be said that Truman was at all good for black people, it is because he didn't want to be nothing more than an unelected caretaker, a soon-to-be former president, and a footnote in history. If he wanted to win, he had to do something to bring black voters into the fold. Is this not true of Joe Biden, who was handpicked by the DNC? We didn't want him or Kamala. They took over the primaries. Bernie was winning 3 states straight. And then South Carolina happened. Jim Clyburn happened. Barack Obama dropped a dime and told everybody else to fall on their moderate conservative swords to make way for Biden. And here we are with a vice president and a VP that we loathe. But they weren't chosen by us. On October 29, 1947, the Truman administration released a document to secure these rights. It was a blueprint for civil rights legislation that included desegregation of the military and elimination of poll taxes, which were imposed in southern states. What difference does it make? They just find other ways through the legislation to tie us to the bottom as the anchors of America. Truman wavered over his civil rights plans, but A. Philip Randolph forced his hand when he again threatened the Democratic president with a march on Washington if his demands for civil rights legislation were not met. Randolph and Truman met in the White House on March 22, 1948. You see, we got to weaponize our vote. This is why the Democrats don't have to offer us anything, because we have shown since 36 that we are willing to do the lesser of two evil, two-step shuffle to our own peril without them having to offer us anything. And that's why they comfortably continue to deny us. And the ADOS movement is here to break that cycle. It stops with this boomer generation. The woke boomers, woke Gen Xers, woke millennials are not doing that anymore. We will be on this square of a protest vote until they cut that check in the trillions over multi-generations. That will be my square until the majority of us have pivoted this direction. Truman was proposing a peacetime draft, but Randolph told Truman that blacks would, quote, never bear arms again until all forms of bias and discrimination are abolished, close quote. Truman didn't appreciate Randolph's candor and said so. I wish you hadn't made that statement. I don't like it at all. He probably backed it up with a nigger. He then left the meeting, but Randolph was undeterred and later picketed the White House. This is what we are as the ADOS movement. We're undeterred by the Russian bot narratives. We're undeterred by the Trump supporter narratives. We're undeterred when folks try to blame us for why Trump may win another election, why he won the last election. We're undeterred. ADOS rising, we are here. We're on our square. We have found our tribe and we are leaning in. Truman also felt pressure at the July 1948 Democratic National Convention. Minneapolis Mayor Hubert Humphrey and other Northerners insisted on keeping the civil rights platform and ultimately won the day. South Carolina Senator Strom Thurmond and other Southerners then walked out and formed the states' rights Democratic Party, popularly known as the Dixiecrats. Strom Thurmond. We're in Strom Thurmond's party. They held their own convention in Birmingham, Alabama, and Thurmond ran as presidential candidate on the Dixiecrat ticket. Oh, thank you, Cheryl. Like and share, family. This sister's hard work needs to be heard. I so appreciate you, my love. Thank you for that. Thank you so much to all of you who are watching, to all of you who are sharing and hosting watch parties. I so appreciate every last one of you. What's up, 80 Articles of ADOS? Thank you for joining the live. Another great show. Another great show. Another great podcast with Lisa Todd and Daoud Giazan. Check them out. So many great shows. The 13% with Arthur Ward and Cynthia McDonald. You can't forget about Be the Power. Oh my God, those brothers, Ali Bay, Josh, Naheem, Logic, I. Thank you for joining the live. Angela, can we live for this? I don't know what you mean, my love. Unpack that. I'm almost done with the read, and then I'll go through what your comments are and pray you out, okay? Okay, where was I? I lost my place, family. Just give me a second. But I have to comment in between so I can help you guys tie and make those connections for understanding that the more things stay the same, the more things stay the same. Uh-oh. I think I jumped too far. Bear with me, family. Sorry. Truman used his executive order authority to establish the FEPC permanently and desegregate the military on July 26, 1948. He had cast his lot with the electoral advantage he needed and with pressure from A. Philip Randolph. We didn't get emancipated until there was pressure from our ancestors who fled their plantations to storm the Union camps. That's how we were emancipated, not out of the kindness of Lincoln's heart, contrary to the miseducation that's been told. Prejudicial, it's all up in there. You need to get this book. It's powerful. He did not return to the subject again until just 4 days before Election Day. On October 29, 1948, he made a campaign stop in Harlem at Dorrance Brooks Square on the corner of 135th Street and St. Nicholas Avenue. It was the first visit to that celebrated neighborhood by a sitting president. Although the visit was not announced until 1 day earlier, a crowd of more than 60,000 people lined the streets to greet Truman. Phileo Nash, the president's special assistant on civil rights, was surprised to find the large crowd quiet before Truman began to speak. Quote, almost everybody in that crowd was praying, either with his head down or actually was kneeling. They were quiet because they were praying, and they were praying for the president, and they were praying for their own civil rights, and they thought it was a religious occasion, close quote. Devotion to the idea of a savior had not abated since the days of Lincoln. That's what Obama was to far too many ADOS, as in the lineage. He still is. That's why I call him Jesus Obama. The disappointments and outright betrayals had not changed the hope for salvation from some political figure or party. Didn't Obama sell us on hope and change? And then we lost 43% of our wealth? While Truman did not take the actions he could have and should have to end lynching, his appearance in the community known as the capital of Black America was enough to cause celebration, as was Bill Clinton, who played the saxophone, right? While giving us 3 strikes. He actually signed Biden's bill into law. And we called him, not me, many AOS within the lineage called him the first Black president after he signed Joe Biden's crime bill into law and then came on Arsenio Hall to play the sax. We need lineage therapy in the worst way. His speech was not particularly illuminating, nor was it even truthful. Quote, I created the Civil Rights Committee because racial and religious intolerance began to appear after World War II. They threatened the very freedoms we had fought to save. As someone who went on a self-described nigger chase in 1914, Truman was well aware that racism didn't start after 1945. In the same way, Biden is aware that he is as racist, Strom Thurmond's boy, as is Donald Trump. But he'll talk to Black folks like Trump is the first racist in office. They're all racist. Newsflash. The iconic erroneous newspaper headline, Dewey defeats Truman, showed his thin margin of victory. Black votes in Ohio, Illinois, and California were particularly crucial. Strom Thurmond prevailed in Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, and South Carolina. But he had made his point, and Democrats would not easily declare their independence from the Dixiecrat brethren. Truman was motivated by the need for black votes, and the candidacy of Henry Wallace made that need even greater. Black people led by Randolph and other leaders should get credit for moving Truman with their demands, as should the ADOS movement. In the end, we will be on the right side of history. And I don't know of any of the people that are against us in opposition, ADOS, the lineage, that would be willing to mail me their reparations checks to my P.O. box once we procure them. Despite, this is the last couple paragraphs, family. Despite being anointed with the good for black people label, Truman returned to the fold as the unreconstructed descendant of slaveholders. In his later years in 1960, despite being anointed with the good for black people label, Truman returned to the fold as the unreconstructed descendant of slaveholders in his later years. Obama descends from slaveholders on his white hand side. He is cousin to Dick Cheney, and Dick Cheney is cousin to George Bush Jr. And someone shared, Latasha, Dr. Gibson. He not only signed the crime bill, but passed NAFTA, which decimated jobs, did away with the Glass-Steagall Act, and gutted welfare of black women. ADOS was even left out of the dot-com boom. She is absolutely right. Welcome to the live, Robin Felix. Thank you so much. I love that you listen at work. Thank you, my love. I love your support of the show and the platform. All of you, I thank you. But yeah, what Dr. Gibson said, I'm going to highlight it as soon as I'm done with this. Okay, so yeah, Obama's lineage. Someone told me, I can't recall what they said specifically. I think it's something about, that's Clinton. Thank you, Dr. Gibson. Thank you, Dr. Gibson, for that clarity. That is Clinton. Al Sharpton, I think his family descends from slaveholders in Mitch McConnell's line. I think that's what someone shared with me. But yeah. Anywho, back to this so we can get this finished and I can read your comments and get you out of here in a decent hour. If anyone, okay. In 1960, when sit-ins swept the segregated South, Truman declared that he wouldn't countenance such behavior in a business he owned, thereby admitting that he would run a segregated business. If anyone, quote, if anyone came into my store and tried to stop business, I'd throw him out. The Negro should behave himself and show he's a good citizen. Common sense and goodwill can solve this thing. We've done it in Missouri, close quote. Truman didn't back down when the Detroit branch of the NAACP questioned his remarks. Quote, your telegram regarding the statement which I made about sit-downs in the restaurant is correct. I would do just what I said I would, close quote. He doubled down. Truman was so confident of the rightness of this position that he added, quote, this is not personal nor confidential. He later added that the demonstrations were communist-inspired. Didn't America teach the communists how to get it done? He finally stopped discussing the issue when former Secretary of State Dean Acheson wrote him a letter imploring him to do so. Quote, do not say that they are communist-inspired. The evidence is all the other way, despite alleged views of J. Edgar Hoover, whom you should trust as much as you would a rattlesnake with a silencer on his rattle. Close quote. Harlemites praying for Truman in 48 were all forgotten when the time came to choose sides in the struggle for real change. On Sunday night, family, Dwight D. Eisenhower. Let's see with my illustrious co-host. in the chat have to say about it? Maya says, hot mess. Those are not queens. She's talking about the Cocktails with the Queen show. It just startles me how Fox Soul has had me on their show, and we were pitching a real political show with a Republican, a millennial, and myself that they have yet to pick up. But they'll let these beautiful airheads get on there, and this is how you know. When we're not at the table, they don't want people with a real political acumen to be at that table. They'd rather sit with Cardi B and P. Diddy, who in one breath says, let's withhold the vote if we don't get tangibles. And in the next breath, he says, if we don't vote for Trump, there's going to be a race war, while he starts a new black political party. Black Magic says, I'm so tired of this trope that black people do not know how to handle money and that part. Why are people pocket watching in the first place? Yes, Angela, absolutely, Black Magic, pocket watching. Want to sit up here and say that a lot of us aren't due cash repair because of what the handful of us may do to squander it. Hey, Angela, thank you for staying in the fight. Speak your truth. Thank you, Nicole. Not your monkey, not your circus. My bestie says this. Absolutely. I'm on my square. ADOS. I'm rolling hard with unapologetically for ADOS. Mike Evans, thank you for joining the live. Hey, sis, stand down. Don't alienate our sisters, even though you're telling the truth. Lift every voice and sing, not moan. One love. Well, you know. I try to be cool, but I am really over the celebrities stepping out of line and not educating themselves. I am an activist, okay? I come from the industry, but I make sure I educate myself before I speak. And if that sounds like criticism, I hope it's perceived as constructive. It's not hurting Vivica, though. No, thank you, Maya. Thank you for reposting and sharing. As soon as I get paid, first person in my face is a white man. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those dollars don't recycle in our communities, family. Oh, thank you, Cheryl. You are certainly one of our greats. Oh, I appreciate that. Humbled by your compliments. Thank you. We are the host, and the rest of the country is the leash. You better know it, Miss Maya. Our politicians are out of their place because we didn't know the game. We didn't know the game, but we're waking up, right, Cheryl? We are waking up and learning politics underground. The revolution is being social media eyes. I get all of my black politics from the likes of Yvette Carnell, Breaking Brown, and all the other shows that I named. Weaponize your vote, socialize your suffering. That's it. Right there, family. Debonair 1, thank you. We must weaponize our vote and socialize our suffering, or we're going to be the only casualties, like we've been the only casualties. We are our greatest distractions. Yes, we are. Yes, Angela, you should see Beyonce, Boyce, and Judge Joe speak on Oh Alabama, Obama, and Kamala Harris. I can't believe Boyce is dogging out Obama. You know, I stopped watching him because he was too much on that, do for selferism, bootstrapperism, bootless strapperism nonsense, I get it, if he's speaking to the top 10%, but to act like ADOS is tethered to the bottom by something they're not doing is woefully ignorant. It is due to institutional systemic racism. And until they're saying that, perhaps he's now seeing the light. If he's with Judge Joe, he may be seeing the light. Thank you, Joseph, for joining the live. As long as you live, there's nothing blank about you. Oh, so sweet. Y'all just love me up. I love y'all black and strong. Thank you for being the wind beneath my wings. This alone reconfirms, Cheryl says, this alone reconfirms that laws are as good as the rotten demons that we write and establish them. Yeah, That's why we have to keep the pressure on. Nothing changes until we force a change like our ancestors did. Cheryl says, yes, our God, Paul Robeson, one of the famous that stood for his own. Yeah, Ice Cube reminds me of him. Yeah, he's become accomplished, very successful, and he's using his voice to help the ADOS movement. I love him for that, because far too many take the position of Dave Chappelle. That, they somehow believe that, caping and riding hard with the ADOS movement is going to somehow render them penniless. It's very shallow. Like and share, family. This sister's okay. We did that. Thank you so much. Angela, can we live for this? Oh, I think you're asking if you can do a live. Yeah, I'm live. I am live, and you could do a watch party. Sure. Black people are unifying here and in the new Black media. Cheryl Livingston shares. Thank you. Yes, we are. We got, everybody's working. Everybody's slinging. I love it some more. I'm here for it, honey. Okay, Dr. Gibson shared about Bill Clinton. He not only signed the crime bill, but passed NAFTA, which decimated jobs, did away with the Glass-Steagall Act, gutted welfare for Black women. ADOS was even left out of the dot-com boom. Yeah, y'all's first Black president, Clinton, because he could blow a saxophone. But we're waking up since Obama and seeing that we're at George Floyd 846. Everybody's moving. It's beautiful to see. Long overdue. I love you, angels. Just know we will live until we won't for this thing of ours. Aw. Deflections. Diddy is lost. The ground workman is a different moderator. Don't mute the front lines. Okay, I don't really know I what that means, but yeah, we're the grassroots. We're the laborers in the vineyard. And I thank each and every one of you for your comments tonight and for tuning in. Make sure you like the video. Join me over at YouTube in case Facebook gets to tripping. They throw me in jail often for telling the truth, but it is what it is. I'm on my square. I'm very comfortable here, and I will be here till they cut the check in the trillions over multi-generations. With that said, family, it's time for me to pray us out. I want to remind you of how amazing you are and put a covering over you. I'll leave you with this, that the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever ADOS and its allies are, God truly is, because, family, you are the face of God. You are the voice of God. You are the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. And with that said, family, you go out here in these streets and act like you know who you are. And you make it a beautiful, God-inspired rest of your evening and next couple of days until Sunday we meet again with more ADOS Hot Topics and Dwight D. Eisenhower. I love you, Black. I love you, strong. Ciao for now, family. Peace.